Welcome to Cyber Focus from the McCrary Institute, where we explore the people and ideas shaping and defending our digital world. I'm your host, Frank Salufo, and we're on location today at RSA and have the privilege to sit down with Matt Hayden. Matt's Vice President for Cyber and Emerging Technology at GDIT, previously served as an Assistant Secretary at the Department of Homeland Security for Cyber, Critical Infrastructure, and a long set of issues. And most importantly, I have to note, is a Senior Fellow at the McCrary Institute. Matt, great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for sitting down with us, and I know we don't have a ton of time and there's a lot to unpack, but let's start with the critical infrastructure sector writ large. Where do we stand? What infrastructures are being targeted most aggressively, and just help us paint that picture.
So critical infrastructure across the board is under attack. I mean, that's something that you can take across the board now. The real difference is the have and have-nots. And so if we use Jen Easterly's terms of cyber poor, target rich, those are where we're seeing a lot of those priorities shifting, because that's where a lot of the efforts are having an impact. So we're looking at the water sector, we're looking at K through 12, we're looking at health, and you're seeing a new focus in agriculture that's really coming in strong. And the challenge with critical infrastructure is you see this strong position from the government out of areas like our three-letter agencies and CISA and everyone playing their roles, but the SRMAs are having to play a stronger role now.
Sector Risk Management Agencies.
Yes, and they're really having to lean in, and especially with groups like agriculture, they're having to figure out, how do we best respond to this really broad set of attacks? And when we say attacks, we're talking about ransomware, we're talking about credential harvesting, and we're also talking about that nasty prepositioning, that living off the land that is very hard to figure out. It's not something that a tool is just going to grab. You actually have to know your network as a critical infrastructure provider. You have to know what good looks like in a mixed environment that you don't have a very great baseline on, and really know if something changes, somebody starts looking at your stuff at 2 a.m, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. So we've had some discussions in the past on living off the land, but can you help our listeners and viewers understand what that means?
Yeah, so you're taking the tools that security professionals use to monitor and provide those security operations for your network, and you're using them against you. So you're using those pathways that security teams leverage, and that is the tools you use to move throughout those particular network segments and the different layers of security.
So who guards the guards?
Exactly. The oversight of the oversight.
Yep. So Volt Typhoon obviously opened a lot of people's eyes. Do you have thoughts on that in particular?
So when Guam happened, we started to look at, why are they doing this? We started to see adversaries a decade ago poking around where there were known vulnerabilities, but they were almost an espionage level type event. You saw some criminality.
Mapping, but not necessarily.
Not looking for persistence, not looking to set up shop. That has changed. And so when you think about someone trying to set up shop on critical infrastructure in Guam, close to very sensitive assets, that changes the flavor of that operation. So now you're looking at that persistence for the potential of disruption. And that is a different story altogether.
And at the end of the day, there's zero espionage value there, right? That's
Right.
purely for pre-positioning.
Correct.
And if you can exploit when the intent is there, you can also attack, yes?
Absolutely.
And that's why this is significant.
That's the disruption model that we can't have happen. And that's where the techniques really have to be deployed to clean that up. And there's an assumption that they are everywhere.
And I think that's a good assumption. I hate to say it, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think every infrastructure not only has been mapped, but probably has been compromised by one particular actor.
I would describe it as there's a phone book now. And to date myself with the use of analogy with a phone book, but there's a phone book and they can pick and choose where they want to strategically position, as well as cataloging what the dependencies are on those particular infrastructures. And that's very dangerous from a how do we keep that running model, because resilience is just as important as defense, and we see this happening on both sides.
That's a great analogy. I'm actually going to steal that. So all good. That's the highest form of flattery.
Yes.
But so looking sort of at the broader set of critical infrastructure issues, I think we're in the very nascent stages of articulating and, more importantly, implementing a genuine deterrent strategy, whether dissuade, deter, compel. What are your thoughts there?
So we're seeing the traditional law enforcement response in a lot of these cases.
Mm-hmm.
Who did it? Where are they? What are the traditional authorities to impose cost
Mm-hmm.
on those individuals? The
Mhm.
big challenge we have is if these individuals are in what we call a safe haven,
Mm-hmm.
let's just say Russia,
Mm-hmm.
and they're camped out in Russia's backyard, and Russia's not going to do anything about it, and will lift their hands and say, "Not our people." We have an obligation to still make that painful.
Absolutely.
That imposed cost model has to deter these actors that are taking pop shots at critical infrastructure, and whether it's seen or unseen.
Mhm.
I would love there to be a little American flag in a melted hard drive, but that's not necessarily how we operate. But that's what has to happen. There has to be a known deterrent. You come after critical infrastructure within our domestic space, it points back to you. We're going to have a conversation you're not going to like.
And some level of visibility there could be important because you're not only deterring that particular actor,
Yes.
everyone else watching to see if we have the wherewithal to respond or
Absolutely, absolutely. It's that strategic deterrence and that deterrent effect that right now the curve is in the wrong direction. We're seeing people and teams of criminality that whether they're attached to loosely bad actors or not, don't feel there's consequences other than they can't go to Disneyland.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's a problem we can't let fester.
And I want to pull that thread in a second, but at the end of the day, and I've been barking for this for many, many years, so forgive me if I sound grumpy, but we need playbooks. Surprise, we know who the actors are.
Mhm.
We shouldn't act surprised when we get kicked in the most obvious place.
Right.
Why don't we have playbooks for every adversary, every potential threat? It's not like they're secret. We kind of know them all.
Mhm.
And then to also have a sense of what would be commensurate to what. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the challenge
Because what works to deter China may not
They
have
do have
any
to be
impact
individualized.
for ransomware gangs
Correct.
or Russia or
Right.
North Korea or, Iran.
yes,
or
they're
whoever.
not going to respond to the same carrots and sticks.
Mhm.
And so those,
And I'm talking sticks right now.
Yes, and the playbooks for candidly retaliating against these bad actors are going to need to be shaped uniquely for them. The reason why there's been struggles in the past, and I'll say 4 years ago,
Mhm.
was that as technology was changing, candidly, we didn't have enough insight into knowing just how bad what they're doing was to escalate it
Mhm.
to those additional levers to pull. So we would have the traditional sanctions methods, we would have the traditional efforts, and we kind of did peanut butter it across. Like, hey, you've done something we don't like, diplomatically, we're going to let you know we're upset with you. But it wasn't something that really imposed cost. And so looking at that model now, there is the need for playbooks that are strategic for each bad actor and their techniques and what they value to really make that a packaged deal to where when they come at us and critical infrastructure, as we have had formally attributed by our intelligence community, that they know that there's something coming for that issue.
And very similar to what's happening to us. And it's not rocket science. What do they value? And our ability to hold it at risk if
Absolutely.
they cross lines, right?
Yes.
But do we need red lines in the silicon? That gets delicate.
It does, because for every time there is a red line, it gets moved.
Yep.
And it's almost a...
And you're forcing the bad guy to sometimes go right to the
Yes,
edge,
you're
right?
saying I'll let you get away with X,
Yep,
but
yep,
not Y.
yep.
And so I personally, this is Matt Hayden's tone, is I need there to be a strategic deterrent for bad actions.
Yep.
As they get worse, the deterrent gets stronger. You have to gradient
So you
it.
know it when you see it?
Yep.
Yeah, so, but I do have, I still think we have to have the wherewithal. And you and I have had this discussion in the past, many times actually, in terms of some of the safe haven discussion. If a perpetrator is saying, hey, these are not our actors, what are your thoughts there?
I think that's actually an invitation to implement a specific deterrent on them through the same cyberspace in which they're reaching out and touching us.
Especially if they say they have no role in it, right?
If they're in an area that doesn't claim them,
Yep.
It's almost like the pirates challenge. If they don't have a country and they're going to be kind of that non-state actor, well then we treat them like a non-state actor and we clean up on aisle 9, and that is something that really needs to because it's seen almost as an option for state actors to leverage non-state actors in this space. And if you take that away by implementing deterrent on them, especially when those aren't our folks,
Yep.
that's a different world.
And there have to be consequences. I mean, the reality is enough is enough, and we do need to be leaning toward that, because we're never going to be in a position where we can firewall or defend our way out of all the problems, nor will we ever shoot our way out of all the problems. The reality is we need to have all the different elements of a playbook and start playing.
Yeah, a blended layered defense and a blended layered response model is what's needed on both sides. We're never going to have the great firewall of the U.S. Our strengths...
I hope not.
Well, I mean, the strength of America is that people want to be here. For all the challenges you have, people would rather live here than anywhere else. And it's because that freedom, the love or hate capitalism, it's where it is. And there is such an opportunity here, and as long as we have that secret sauce, we are in the opportunity seat to maximize all the things we need to. And that means that our adversaries, they want to carve their world off so they don't see how good we have it here.
Well said. Well said. And it's innovation. That gets to a broader set of innovation
you
questions
democratize our ability to innovate and provide technology and resources around the world by keeping us outside of that great firewall model.
So let's get into innovation and emerging technologies. Obviously, you can't go 1 foot in at RSA and not hear a pitch around artificial intelligence, real, perceived, and everything in between, I think, as well as quantum and post-quantum encryption sorts of issues. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I was surprised that A in RSA isn't artificial intelligence now, because every booth has it. Yes. Well, we're seeing it both Defender and in every possible way you can leverage a tool. It's, if there was a method of doing something, it could be done automated. And that's a lot where we saw the initial areas of AI. That was the safest because it was a known action that you could put known guardrails against. Now that we're doing a lot more in the respond to analysis and that tiptoe into action phase, like we start operationalizing these things, you still have to have that supervisory model, but you don't have to have it until you've evaluated your risk. And that risk conversation is delicate because a lot of people are used to there being that human in the loop at every point in the decision chart.
There still has to be a human in the loop, though,
but
right?
it's which
yes.
point.
And
so
at
if
which
there was
point,
4
exactly.
before, maybe there only needs to be 1. Now, I'm not saying we need less people because our workforce is so short. It allows the workforce to do more with what they have.
Roger that.
And also looking at what people aren't nascently great at is where we should be leveraging tools. If we have amazing analysts that are going to have insights that you just can't really duplicate with AI, then we need to take all the other tools that they're doing that are manual processes and automate those so we can get the most strength out of our great people.
And quantum?
Yes, so we saw a lot. It kind of got a little quiet, candidly, in the last year because everybody did the exercise of where am I using encryption, where are my crown jewels, where are my things that even if I have my encrypted traffic or encrypted at rest data compromised, you know, where does it need to have this additional layer of support through these upgraded signatures? And so we saw a large planning phase that swept through the government. People responded to OMB. Industry even took shots at it. They're like, okay, we need to know what encryption we're using where, and if we have to upgrade it, how? And so that's the playbooking that's gone on, but the newer signatures in the general civilian world aren't ready yet until we get that magical checkered flag from NIST. And so everybody's kind of waiting for that whistle to blow. And
just for our viewers and listeners, the consequences of falling behind here are what?
So you try not to be too grandiose because it's easy to be in this area. Because you start to think, what if a nation state not named the United States of America has access to decrypt everything that uses encryption as we know it, financial transactions.
And keep all their secret, right?
Keep their secrets and have all of ours. And in that instance, in those first days of that technology, we won't know they have it. And so it will be operating blind in a way that just isn't acceptable for the way we operate, even in a financial transactions world, even in an email world. Like, put to the side national security systems. We're talking the U.S. economy is not built for that level of adversarial transparency. And so that's where those buttresses have to be in place. Now, it's very easy to make quantum computing this encryption buster boogeyman, but at the same time, quantum insights are also allowing us to do different algorithms and models for AI. They're giving us a way to look at things that aren't as binary and giving us a way to kind of take leaps that we weren't able to take before. So while quantum computing catches up, quantum-driven or quantum insight-driven technologies are starting to accelerate, and we're starting to see a lot of developments there, really in the sensor and comms world.
From an enabling
Yes,
standpoint.
so it's both.
Yeah, yeah. Any other big tech trends you're keeping your eyes on?
So AI and quantum keep us pretty busy.
Just those small ones.
Just those
yeah,
small
yeah,
ones.
yeah.
But when we start looking at all the applications of 5G and what 6G can be, and we start looking at the promise of a smart sensor on every device and it not needing to be tethered, it not needing to be high powered, that type of technology is still coming our way. And before, when 4G and 5G came, there wasn't this rapid analysis or rapid pattern making that AI and other technologies are going to incorporate. So that next generation of technology in wireless communication is going to give us not just faster, better, broader communication options, it's going to have an analysis package that comes with that that's going to be a whole new world. Now, that also comes with that privacy conversation.
Yeah,
Like, what if everything on you knows everything about
Absolutely,
you? And
yeah.
so how does that work in that world? So there's a lot of both pluses and minuses we're going to have to adapt from that.
And they're technical and just like pretty
All
much
above.
every issue, yeah. But the question in terms of, you brought up sort of 6G, and that leads me to another set of issues, and we've discussed this in the past, IT-OT convergence, physical cyber convergence, and I think even when you were at CISA, you were advancing that ball and that thinking, and maybe even Suzanne Spalding before you.
Yes.
So it's here now, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's hard to differentiate, delineate. Culturally, very different. Some of these legacy technologies have been around for 20 years. Some you can't take down because it could cause a brownout if you're dealing with electricity. What are your thoughts there on the broader OT set of issues?
So the maturity of the device is getting better, but the replacement schedule is not. And so you do have, the OT community is starting to really lay into the role-based authentication type model. So before, you had a switch, you either had permission to turn it on or off. And now you have a switch that said, should this person be able to turn it on and off during this window in time from this location, implementing kind of a zero trust mindset into the switch. And that is such a great leap from where we were.
Oh, yeah.
But those switches aren't everywhere. And just as you mentioned, you can't just take down an operational technology
them,
field.
yeah,
It's a very challenging operation and cost intensive. So what we're trying to do is prioritize those national critical functions, where those sub functions and where they intersect. Who do we need to work with as a critical infrastructure community and as a government to really triage those priority areas first?
You touched a buzzword. I know it's more than a buzzword, but shed some light on zero trust and what it means to you.
So to me, it means
Defense industrial base is doing a lot, right?
Yeah. So it means new cyber versus old cyber. Old cyber, you didn't have some of the tools we have now. Old cyber, you didn't have to really interrogate if the user and their credentials were who they say they were. It was an understanding that somebody could get your username and password, and we had that dreaded reset your password every 30 days or whatever the clock was, and that fixed that. But now the harvesting of credentials, the harvesting of network actions and the tools we use on the network side to navigate and do all this means you have to be watching and interrogating the behaviors of users. And that's where we knew that 10 years ago, the tools and the capacity to implement it without bringing your network to a screeching halt didn't exist back then. So I look forward to when we, instead of saying zero trust, we just say modern security, because that's what we are talking about.
That's what we want to get to,
And there's a scale, and the good news is they didn't set a threshold when they said zero trust. They said, these are the pillars that you need to have components to. The identity, the data, and CISA has 5, DoD has 7. It's just about the way they automate it. And how that package works together, you get these robust levels of monitoring and resilience and all the things that we ask someone to bring together for a defensible network.
And you brought the word up a couple times. I want you to go a little deeper on what resilience. I mean, I'll take my whack at it. And at the end of the day, we're never going to defend everything everywhere all the time from every perpetrator, every modality of attack. But we also know that there are bad actors who wish to do harm, and we need to be able to withstand and ideally bounce forward, not just back. But give me your thoughts around.
So I'm not going to do better than Chris Inglis at this. He is
the master.
He is the master of this. But I do crib from a lot of his notes on this. I mean, being defensible is the initial posture. You have to be able to expect a punch. And resilience is when you get hit, you don't go down. And so we're trying to make sure that all the networks we support and all the networks we work with have a you're going to get attacked mindset. And how do the critical functions, the crown jewels, stay, retain, operate in an under attack scenario? And that's resilience to us. It's not, the traditional FEMA understanding. It's you're going to be under attack all the time. When that happens, how are you going to be able to operate when something does get isolated because it's got an infection? When something does get pulled to the side, how are you going to operate? It's almost like the election paper ballot model, except you stay digital.
Or cranks for...
Yes, but we're still staying digital.
Yeah.
That resilience means, you have like the ability to re-stand up infrastructure as service, to really work with your network and your users to where you still have the ability to operate. Like sometimes it will get slower because you're using alternate methods, but it's not down. And that's really the effort.
What are you most excited about in the defense industrial base, GDIT in particular? Anything got you really excited?
So I'm originally a Huntsville, Alabama kid, and so space is something
I'm not going to make you mention where you went to undergrad. That's okay.
Yes, it's
War
okay.
Eagle.
Yes. My friends in Tuscaloosa.
Roll Tide, I'll give it to you.
Yes, they're not gonna celebrate the origins of your great institute. But when we work with the space industry, it's the base station concept, the constellation concepts, what we're getting from alternate networking and communication, and candidly, space-based critical infrastructure is a whole new world that I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of us take advantage of when it comes to resilience in comms, resilience in data services, resilience across the board. It's starting to include those layers of space-based assets and space-based critical infrastructure, which
I'm glad you brought up Huntsville and space.
Yes.
I can't let you go. Should we have designated, the administration recently rolled out National Security Memorandum 22, picking up 11 years later after PDD 21, designation of critical infrastructure. Space wasn't there. What are your thoughts?
It was a modernization, but it didn't take into account future opportunities. And cloud and space were future opportunities that needed that SRMA addressing. Now,
some love,
they needed it.
Prioritization.
I don't think they're going to let that go. I wish it was today they had made that decision. I think there is going to be an SRMA that steps up. I just don't think they have a dotted line yet. And so I have faith that they will be, and the cross-sector work, while not an SRMA, and puts out candidly the wrong signals of all things are critical, and then there's working groups. I think that they're going to evolve in the right direction. I just wish they had evolved last month instead of 2 years from now.
You and me both, and I'm not going to go too much into that because everyone knows my views on that. But tyranny of time requires I be a bit of a tyrant. Before we close, what questions didn't I ask that I should have?
So the future of what we're seeing is a lot about security outcomes as opposed to security techniques. And one of the things we don't have a great handle on is what is the security outcome that beats these security challenges, and that isn't perfect right now. So what we're looking to do is amplify strategic deterrence, work with our government partners on information sharing, like all of the traditional things we've been talking about for the 4 or 5 years. But we're also looking 4 or 5 years out in a world where we have more technology at stake, we have a whole lot more attack surface. What are those security outcomes that we should start putting our chips on the table for now? And so that's where we're working our R&D. Awesome. We're doing frameworks in that direction, and that's where we're really finding a passion for it.
I wonder if we can even call them attack surfaces, because it's going to be one surface at some point, right?
Right.
Matt, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your awesome work every day. Thank you for being a friend, and thank you for being a senior fellow.
It was excellent.
Thank you.